YouTube, I'm back with another Flutter tutorial. Listen, in the previous video, we saw how we can implement the contact list within the Flutter application so it accesses the native contacts and shows you, and then how you can search within those contacts within the Flutter application. In this video, you are going to learn how to create a contact, how to update an existing contact, and how to delete a contact within this same application. And also you will have a contact details page where you would just tap any list item from the contact list and you can see the details of that page. So if you have not subscribed to the channel, do it right now, and without further wait, let's get into the code. So what actually changed since the last video? Actually, a couple of things. But before, we have to clone the repository, so you would run this command with the git clone. And once you have cloned the repository, you need to switch to this particular branch, which is feat/add-delete-contacts-start. And once you have done this, we can go forward and I'm going to tell you what else changed. So number one, we actually upgraded the contact service package. Previously, the version that we were using was 0.3.10. And now the version that we are using is 0.46, which means that we have got more functions to work with, which makes our life really easy. Now the second thing that happened is that I actually added a spinner. So until the contacts load, we show a progress bar, or actually a circular progress indicator. And then as soon as the contacts are loaded the first time, it gets hidden. The third thing that we have changed is that instead of using the contact from the contact service package, we have our own class named the app contact. And this is the difference. So the contact class from the contact service package has the data in this form. It has display name, phones, postal addresses, etc. And the app contact class that I've created basically contains two things. One is the color, which is the color gradient that we show. And the second thing is the info. So info is exactly what the contact is. So you can see that it has the same property. So if we want to define the type of the info, that is going to be contact, and the type of color is going to be color. The fourth thing that we have changed is we have created, or actually moved, the contact avatar component. So the avatar that we see on the list, that has been moved to its own stateless widget. The fifth thing that changed is the get color gradient method. So this has also been moved to its own file, which is in the utils folder. So just to keep everything clean and tidy. The sixth thing that we have is the contact list also has its own stateless widget. So instead of having all the code in the main.dart file, we have a contact list file inside the components folder where we have all this code. So you can see that it just generates some list tiles within the list view builder. And finally, we have some code cleanup that you'll see as we go through the tutorial. As you can see, we have two contacts right now, one that has the initials being shown within the avatar and the other one has an actual image. So first of all, what we are going to do is we are going to implement how to add a contact from, let's say, a floating action button. So in order to do so, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to the main.dart, and here we are going to add a floating action button within the scaffold. So I'm going to start writing the floating action button, and we are going to use the floating action button widget. Inside we'll have a child, we'll use an icon with the icons.add. So if I save this, you can see that we have the material floating action button at the bottom right. Now I can also add a background color to this, and I'm going to use the theme's primary dark color. So primary dark or primary color dark, and you can see that we have a darker color here now. Now we can talk about what happens if I press this. So I'm going to add on pressed method. And here what we need to do is that we need to use the contact service open contact form method. So I can simply say contacts service dot open contact form. And here I can just put a semicolon, and that's going to be it. So if I just save this and try this out, you can see that it opened the create new contact form, and I can actually add something here and then it should reflect in the list. Now if I close this one, you will see that it threw a lot of errors here on the console or on the terminal, and that is because we have to handle some errors if the user closes the form, because that's how the package works. So in order to do so, what we want to do is that we want to make this function an async, and then we are going to just put a try around this and we'll await for this to happen. And once we have this, then we can simply try to catch on the form operation exception. This is something that we get out of the contact service. And then what we want to do is that we can say catch error. And then here we are going to listen to a couple of errors. For instance, we can say case form operation error code dot, and then we have form operation cancelled, because these are the errors that are actually thrown when we close this. So you can see that this is the form operation cancelled error that was thrown. So there are a bunch of them that I can quickly add, and we need to be able to put a switch here, and then we are going to switch to error code, and here we are going to put the cases. And finally, when we get the error, we are just going to say print, and then we can say e.toString just to log those errors out. And they would not be as much as these logs, but just a simple log would suffice. So I'm going to save this now, and now we can try this out. So if I open this now, and if I hit close, you can see that we only got this log, which is fine. We didn't get a lot of logs, or yeah, the terminal isn't exploding. So now that we have this in place, we also have to make sure that when a new contact is created, we basically load all the contacts back. And this is just to keep this easy, because if we add a new contact form, where should we add that? To the bottom of the list or to the top of the list? And since we get all the contacts from the contact service package, and when we get it in an order of the given name, it is better to just reload all the contacts to keep everything simple. So in order to do so, what we have to do is that we have to just say, hey, there's going to be a contact coming in from this method's execution, because this returns a future. As you can see, it returns a future of contact, and we are going to simply check if the contact is not equals null, then we are going to just say get all contacts, and that's going to be it. So let's save this now, and then let's try to add a contact. So I can say my or Flutter, and then I can say expert, and then I can basically add a couple of things, or actually just one number. So I'm gonna just say this is some random number here, and then finally I can just hit save, and you can see that Flutter expert save it said, and now we have loaded all the contacts. So the add contact functionality is actually done. If I wanted to add another contact, let's say Angular expert, and let's say I add a number here, something like this. And now if I want to add a picture as well, let's say, so I'm gonna just say, hey, take a photo. Let's see what this happens. Okay, so we have this feature in the simulator now in which we can take a picture. So I'm going to take a picture of this, and then I'm going to quickly save this. And now that we have this done, I can quickly save this, and we should have this contact loaded as well. So now you can see that we have the Angular expert as well, and everything is in the order of the given names. Now this is really good. Now we can move to the next step, in which we will tap on any of the contacts and we'll see the details, because we already have this contact detail page. So you can see that we have this component in which we are trying to create the contact avatar, and then we have a list in which we show the name, family name, and all the phones. So in order to kind of access this page, we do have some parameters that we want to pass to this. So we want to pass the contact, we want to pass some functions. What would happen when we update a contact? What would happen if we delete a contact? So in order to just navigate to this page, we need to go to our components folder, and in the contacts list dot, and here we have the code. So for this list, whenever I tap on a list tile, I should navigate to the contact detail page. And in order to do so, I'm going to add the on tap method here. I'm just going to indent this. And now what we need to do is that we need to say, hey, we need to get the navigator, because we are going to create a dynamic material page route. So we can say, hey, navigator of context, and then we are going to say push, and we are going to push a material route or a material page route in which we need to define our own builder. So we are going to say, hey, create a builder in which we will have a build context. We'll call it context. And this is going to basically return the contact details page. Now, this looks cool so far, but we need to provide all the three things that are expected in this contact details page. So we need to provide contact and both of these functions as well. So in order to do so, we can quickly go back here and we can say, hey, provide the contact. That's going to be it. We already have a contact property, so we are providing it as it is. This is kind of short from contact. So I can also provide the method. So I am going to say on contact delete, and we are going to provide on contact update. So both of these methods basically expect that an app contact is going to be passed in here. So I can simply call it contact. In fact, I would call it contact just to separate this from this one. And here as well, I can say app contact contact. Now I had to do this because if you go to contact details, you can see that the definition of the on contact update and on contact delete says that it is a function which is supposed to receive an app contact. And that's what we are doing right here. Now that we have set this up, let's try this out and see if it actually works. So if I now click on Flutter Expert, you can see that we navigated to the page, we see the avatar, we see the name, family name, and we also see the phones. Now if I go back and try, let's say the Angular Expert, you will see that we also show the image because we are using the same contact gravatar component or widget, which basically shows the image if the avatar is available, or it shows the initials if the avatar is not available. So similarly for testers Google, we've got this, and you can see that since we had two phone numbers here or two different kind of numbers in this account, we show both of them. So now we are adding blooper. So now we are adding a new contact, and also we are able to view the details of the contact as well. And feel free to add any of blooper. And feel free to add any properties here in the contact details page based on your application or based on your use case, but this is just to keep it as simple as possible. Now the next thing to do is to make sure that we are able to edit or delete a contact, and we are going to do that within the contact details page. So what we'll do is that we'll add a menu drop down here in which we'll have both the actions. So we are going to go to the contact details page, and here we are basically going to create the actions. So for that, I can just say list of string, and here I'm going to call this actions, and then I can say string, and here I'm going to create two strings. First is going to be edit, and the second is going to be delete. Now you could also use enums or constants for this, but I'm just going to keep this simple. So now that we have the actions in place, we need to put a drop down menu here. So this top component that we have is basically a stack in which we have three things. One is the contact avatar, which you see here. The other is this align, which is this button. As you can see that we have this icon start arrow back. And the third one is going to be the pop-up drop down menu that we are going to use. So I'm going to create an align here, and here we are going to have a child, and we are going to use padding for this one, similar to what we have above. And then what we can simply say is that this is going to be a padding of const edge insets all, and we are going to call this 8.0. And finally, we'll have a child that will be a pop-up menu button. And this one is basically going to have an item builder of its own. So we need to provide this a build context. Gonna call it context. And here we are going to return some pop-up menu items. But since we already have this actions list here, what we can simply do here is that we can say, hey, do a map on actions, and basically call each action a string. And then what you'll do is that you'll return a pop-up menu item in which we are going to have the value set to the action, and then the child will have a text widget which will contain the value of the action. and I'm going to put the semicolons here, which are necessary. And around the actions.map, we need to just call a tool list. And now we are done. So if I save this now, you can see that we've got this button right here. I'm not sure if you can see this, but what we need to do is make sure that we are aligning this alignment dot top right. And now if we save this, you can see that it came here. And if I click, you can see we've got the edit and the delete both right here. Now, these two options do not do anything at the moment, and we need to provide them some action. So what we are going to do here is that we are going to create a method. We're going to call it onAction. And this is going to receive a string of action. And then we are going to switch on this action based on what has been clicked on. So it would be either the case that this is edit, or this would be the case that it is delete. And now what we can do is that we can just, for now, print the action. So I'm going to use this onAction method here in the pop-up menu button, and we have something called onSelected, and here I can pass this onAction method. So if I save this now, and if I try to click edit, you can see that we got the log edit, and if I click delete, you can see that we got the log of delete. Now let's try to implement the functionality of edit first. And for edit, what we want to do is we want to do something similar to what we did for the open contact form or creating a new form. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to just copy all of this, and I'll go back here and then I'll paste it here. And now we basically need to import the contact service, and we need to make this method an async since we are going to use await. But instead of open contact form, we need to do open existing contact, and here we need to provide the contact. So our contact is not exactly contact, it's a type of app contact. So we can simply say widget dot contact, which is of type app contact, as you can see, and then dot info is of the type contact. So we are going to provide widget dot contact dot info. Now that we have this done, we can simply remove this one and we are good to go. So I'm going to save this right now, and now if we click edit, you can see that we got the edit contact, and here we can change the values. We can also add or remove the image, and finally we can get done with it with either this save or clicking the close basically. So as you can see that we are also handling the errors here, so we got the log as well. Now one thing that we need to make sure that once we have an updated value from a contact, we need to reflect that in the view as well. I mean, what happens if I go and change Flutter to just F here? This wouldn't reflect in the contact details page unless we update the state. So first of all, I can call this updated contact. And then once we have got the updated contact, we need to update our contact, which is the widget.contact, and basically it's information or info, so we can reflect this here. So in order to do so, what I'm going to do here is that I can simply call the set state method, and here we can say, hey, update the widget.contact.info and assign it to updated contact. And that's gonna be it. So I'm gonna quickly save this one, and then I'm gonna go and edit this. Let's say we can simply call this Android expert, and if I hit save, you will see that once this is saved, it comes back and it changes it automatically because we changed the state. And now you can see that the initials have changed as well. But if I go back, you will see that this is still an Flutter expert. We don't have the Android expert until I refresh or reload. So if I do a hot reload, you will see that now we've got the Android expert and the Flutter expert is gone now. So in order to kind of handle this one, what we would want to do is that once we have saved this information, we have a way for the list to reload the contacts as well. So in order to do so, what we'll do is that we will call this onContactUpdate method here. So we are going to say, hey, call widget.onContactUpdate, and also then pass the widget contact from here. So we get this back into the contact list method here. And now we can basically print it here as well. Now, as I said, this is the contact list widget and it is a stateless widget. It just shows the contacts, but the actual contacts are loaded from the main dot dot. So in order to make this all work, we need to call some method from here when the on contact delete and when the on contact update is called. So ideally in our situation, we need to reload all the contacts when the cursor appears here or when the code basically reaches this point. So in order to do so, what we need to do is we need to be able to pass the reload contacts from the main dot to the contact list. So what we'll do here is that we'll introduce a new property here that we can use, and then we can pass it from the main dot dot. So we'll go here and we'll say function, and then we'll name it reload contacts. And then we also have to provide this here in the reload contacts. Now we have to go to main dot dot, and then we also have to provide this reload contacts method. And here we already have a function called get all contacts. And this is going to be it. Now that we are passing this reload contacts, let's go here. We've got this method, and then when we get to this point and when the on contact update is called, we need to be able to call, and then we can call this. Now if I save this and we try this all out, this is all going to work out. So let me quickly do a hot reload. And now I can go to Android Expert. I can go to edit. I can call this Flutter Expert instead. I hit save. This is going to be reflective right away within the contact detail. And if I go back, you can see that we've got the Flutter Expert here and the Android Expert is gone because we changed the name. So you can see that this all works out pretty well. What happens is that it goes from contact details to on contact update. From on contact update, it calls reload contacts. And from reload contacts, it calls the get all contacts, which ultimately loads all the contacts again. Now we are going to do the same for the delete scenario as well. So I am going to just put this here as well. I'm going to remove this comment and now save this. And now we can talk about how we handle the delete functionality. So in order to delete a contact, we need to be really careful. So what we'll do is that we'll just show a dialog to confirm if the user wants to delete this contact or not. So in order to do so, we are going to go to the contact details page. And here we are going to create another method and we'll call it show delete confirmation. And this method will contain the alert. So let's create the alert first. So we are going to say alert dialog. We'll name it alert, and then we'll say alert dialog. Here we are going to provide the title. We'll call it text. We'll say delete contact. Here we are going to say content. In the content we can say text, and we'll say, are you sure you want to delete this contact? Just to be sure. And then we'll have some actions here, which will be a list of widgets. And finally, what we want to do is that we can simply call the show dialog method. Okay. And then what we want from this method is to provide the context. So this is going to be context. And then we also have to provide the builder. So we'll say builder. And then this is going to be providing a build context, which is going to be context. And here we can simply say return alert. The reason we are providing a builder here is that we want to be able to just close the dialog if we press the cancel action. So we are going to define the actions now. So we can say widget. We are going to call it cancel button. And here we are going to use a flat button. Here we'll say child text. We can say cancel. And here we'll say on pressed. And on press, we want to do a navigator dot off context. And then we just do a pop. Now, when we try to use this context, this is going to get the context of this builder. So it just closes the dialog and doesn't move back to the previous page. Okay. So this is, yeah, just something to know. And for the next action where we have a new widget, we are going to call this continue or delete button. We're going to have a flat button. Here we are going to have the color set to colors.red. Then we have the child as text, delete, and then on press, what we want to do is we want to be able to delete the contact, but let's just make this work and then we'll see what happens when these buttons are pressed. So I'm going to pause the cancelled button and the delete button as well. So now that we have set this, we can just use this method when we have the action of delete called. So I can quickly call this. And now we can see what is wrong with this one. So we are missing a semicolon. And now if I save this, I can quickly go here and press delete, and you can see that we have the dialog delete contact. Are you sure you want to delete this? If I hit cancel, you can see that it did a navigator.pop and then it came out of the dialog to this page. Okay. Similarly, this should also work if I press the back button. So you can see that it works as well. Now for the delete functionality, we need to make this function an async, and then we need to do a wait, and then we can simply say contacts service dot delete contact, and then we have to provide the contact here. So this is going to be contact, actually this is going to be widget dot contact, which is the app contact dot info, and now this should basically delete the contact. Once we have deleted the contact, we do want to call the function similar to how we did for editing. So we need to call widget.onContactDelete method. So I'm going to go here, paste this, and just change this to onContactDelete. Now, as soon as we click the delete button, we also want to just close the delete dialog as well. So I can simply say, hey, do a navigator dot off contacts dot pop, and that's going to be it. So let's try this out and let's see what happens if we do this. So I'm on my list and I go to Flutter Expert. I go here, I try to delete this, I press delete, and you can see that it closed the dialog, but it's still on the contact details page. If I go back, you can see that the contact has been deleted. Although in this application, we might want that it also goes back to the list directly when we press delete. So it should close the dialog and it should go back to the list page. So in order to do so, let's create another one. So I can simply say Flutter Expert, and then here we can add some random number, save this. We should have this created in the list. And now if I go here, I can basically delete it. Now, in order to make sure that we go back from the contact details page as well, what we need to do is that when we do the on contact delete, which is coming from the contact list here, we also do a navigator.pop in here as well. So we need to do a navigator dot of context dot pop. So this goes back to the list page. So I'm going to quickly reload this. And now if I go to Flutter Expert, go here, press delete and press delete, boom, you can see that everything happened in an instant. We closed the dialog, we came back to the list page, and now we see the reloaded contacts because we reloaded the contacts as well. Awesome. So I hope that I was able to communicate the concepts clear to you, and now you know a lot about how to work with contacts within the Flutter application. So if you liked the video, press that thumbs up button and also share in the comments what do you feel about this tutorial, and if there are any things related to Flutter that you want to learn about, let me know in the comments as well. And I know that this COVID situation is pretty bad, but still I wish all the best to you for whatever projects you are working on, and until the next video, ciao.